Hello and welcome to Edinburgh Business Stories. EBS is hosted by myself, Alex Richards of Umore, a video production studio based in Edinburgh and Bristol, and Alan Smith of Action Coach, providing business coaching throughout Edinburgh and the Lothians. If you aren't already, remember to subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this upcoming episode of Edinburgh Business Stories. A big thank you to Rathbones for partnering with us on this episode. Rathbones. Invest well, live well. Andy, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So we had you on before. You were telling the story of Lost Shore, which is going from strength to strength. And however, we would love to hear more about that. But you actually have another big venture that we thought we'd get you back on to hear the story of that. And it kind of weaves in with a bit of Lost Shore as well. So tell us a little bit about Lighthouse.
Yeah, I'm delighted that you've had me on to talk about this business. I really love this business, and it's by setting this one up, I think gave me a lot of the confidence to take Lost Shore to the next steps during its preparation phase, shall we say it, that only lasted a decade. But yeah, the Lighthouse is a business centre, like a community workspace that's based out in North Berwick. We then went on to purchase and sell another one in Falkirk. We've opened another centre out by Lost Shore, actually, in the International Climbing Arena over there. And we've just received planning permission in a joint venture to build what we hope is going to be Edinburgh's coolest 80,000 square feet, £25 million office space down in Leith. Incredible.
So go back, how does this story, and, please feel free to weave it as much as you like into the Lost Shore stuff as well. But, you live in North Berwick, and this is sort of where the whole journey began, right?
Yeah, that's right, actually. So I'd been doing the Lost Shore stuff or Wavegarden as it was back and then for maybe 2 or 3 years. So maybe I had that idea in 2012, and this was maybe 2015. And we lived in a cottage that kind of overlooked a piece of land. It was an old farmer's workers cottage, and we needed to do the garden. And I remember it was I think it was like a January sort of time. And I'm not super handy around the house, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm constantly reminded of this, but I do like to get out in the garden and, like being outdoors and doing all that stuff. So I said to my wife, right, I'm going to rebuild our garden, because if we're going to have kids, it just needs to have a nice grassy patch, all the rest of it, fence, path, all that. She was like, oh, you can't do that. I was like, I'll figure it out. I got YouTube. So anyway, for the next 6 months, I toiled away at this garden. But of course, while I was out there for those hours, I kept looking at this patch of land, and it had a to let board in it for offices. It was beside the MacArthur and Glen, sort of like elderly, a place for elderly out in North Berwick. And I was like, at that time, I was thinking, well, I know Wavegarden has just had an investment from WeWork, from Adam Newman at WeWork, 13.7 million, 40% of the company to do the R&D out in Spain. And the reason that he was interested and compelled into that sector was he thought, well, could surf parks, surely they should all have business centres, like workspaces next to them. And I thought to myself, well, North Berwick desperately needs a workspace because there's not the commercial infrastructure to support the growing residential in town. And I thought, well, if Adam Newman and his lawyers have checked this out in New York or wherever they were, that this makes sense, and it does seem to make sense, and I don't need to do much cross-checking there. I thought, well, if I could try and build a workspace in town here that the town genuinely needs, and I came from a property background, so it wasn't something that scared me off too much. Then potentially one day, if I have both of these businesses, I could maybe put one beside the other. And that was kind of the idea that started to form, and then I took it from there.
Can I just ask, how did you know that North Berwick needed it?
I lived there, so I was commuting in to town every day. Yeah. It cost me about $2,000 a year in train fare just to get there, and I was thinking, well, I could make our fixed desk $2,000 a year, and then the sales pattern could be, well, rather than spending $2,000 a year to commute into town just to do your job. So you leave at 7 a.m, so you leave early, so you don't get to see much of your family or anything like that. Yeah. You only get to start at 9. Yeah. You have to leave at 5, but again, you don't get to see too much of your family or anything because you're back at 6:30, 7. Yeah. You spent your $2,000. Well, actually, if you spent that $2,000 having a fixed desk here, you could leave later in the morning, say 8 a.m., start work earlier, leave work later, so you'll work a longer work day, but get home earlier. So you do, for less cost, you do more work and see your family and have more time to like do whatever activities you want to do. So that was kind of my premise for it. And that was actually what I did when I was trying to convince people to lease space. I found out when the trains were cancelled, they were always cancelled like once every few weeks in North Berwick. And I'd just go down to the station, just walk up the train and basically tell people that.
And how many people bought that?
Check me, surely.
And is that what happened then? Did people actually do?
Oh, I mean, it didn't just happen just like that. But it got enough people for me to then have there was a need in North Berwick, not just for flexible office space, but there was a need for, like Jenna, who runs the local dance school. Right, I know personally that every kid in East Lothian basically goes to her dance school, and she's like super established, amazing work ethic, and she's going nowhere. And I knew like Vary, who's a local personal trainer, ditto, and Sarah, the hairdresser, ditto. But if you go to the banks and say you've got these people lined up, they'll ask for covenant strength and everything else. I'd be like, no, it's just a bunch of people in North Berwick that I know are desperate for this place, and they're already successful without it. So I think that it like with hedging, if you can get 50 of these people in this building, most of them will work and thrive. But even if one or two tenants leave, or they, in the best case scenario, and this has happened, outgrow us, that's a really good coup for us when people outgrow us and they have to move on, then it doesn't also break your business plan. So I actually like the whole concept of the hedging, rather than just renting a building to one tenant. You think they're a 5A1 covenant, and then suddenly something goes wrong in their business, they leave, you can't pay your rent, and you get foreclosed. This has been this was what was happening out there in property. So I really kind of felt like I knew, because I lived in North Berwick, that there was demand, and I just had to go through the rigmarole of the planning and convincing the owners to sell it to me. And then the hardest bit by far was obviously raising the money to actually open it. Yeah.
And how do you do that then?
Well, looking back on it, I think it was always a bit of a merry dance, because I didn't have any money. But I was very fortunate that the people that owned the land, there was a guy, Jim Wilkie, actually passed away last year, God rest his soul. He was an absolutely brilliant guy. But he'd built the MacArthur Glen. And MacArthur Glen, whichever one. One's a shopping centre and one's
one's in Livingston.
One's in, it's not that one. Right.
McCarthy and Stone, is
McCarthy
it?
and Stone.
Right,
Yeah, McCarthy and Stone, yeah. And he'd built that. And the reality was, he was a property guy, right? So he'd got what he wanted from that site, but the council said, you have to build some offices next door to you. And I think him and his business partners thought, fine, there's no demand for 5,000 square foot offices in North Berwick, but if we've got to do it, we've got to do it. So they built this, and I think they were kind of wanting out. But when I then found out that they were, let's say they were trying to let these offices, but they weren't trying very hard to let them, because if it turned out there was no demand for offices in town, then it's a bit of a standard property play. Then they can go back to the council and say, can we build more houses on it? But that's the last thing North Berwick needs. It's got enough houses. It's not got enough like restaurants and offices and commercial infrastructure. So I just went and found out where his offices were in Dublin Street, knocked on the door, and I was like, hi, I'm Andy. Hi, Jim. It's like, I think I know what you're doing, mate, but I've got a plan. And I thought he was just going to close the door on me, be like, you cheeky wee whatever. And he actually said, oh, I see what your plan is. And I live in North Berwick too, and it does need offices. And I'm going to, give you time of day. So have you got any money? Oh, sure, I've got a few irons in the fire, Jim. And he's like, and so I was like, oh, I basically got a green light. So I then scurried off and created this business plan. And I had 8 investors lined up. But none of them were actually budging, because a lot of the property guys in town were like, this will never work sort of thing. And I like that type of challenge, especially because I knew if I got it right, it'd work, because I lived there. So I like that type of challenge as well. It won't work. But a few of them were in, but then they were all looking left and right, who's going to budge. And then to his credit, there was one chap, guy, Stuart Sheridan, who I'll always be very grateful to, property guy in town. He said, I'll put a wee bit in, a few pennies in. And that, Sherry's in. Oh, right, okay, well, this must be good. Is that right? And then boom, 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 boom. And then one chap ended up saying, look, I'd like to take all of this. I was like, but you're going to have to just like work for me, sort of on reception type of thing.
You jumped at that chance.
That doesn't sound much fun. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I've grafted for the last 2 years. So I then had to figure out a different way as to how to get the financial structure in place so that I could build it, but still retain control over it and get some equity in it. And that's what I did. And we built it. I then did 51, I think, deals it was with different tenants. I enjoyed doing all that stuff. And I was a property agent at one stage. And it's not a rocket science, but sold some people into it, opened it. And then it was great because within a month, the banks came back to me, who I needed before we opened, and said, Andy, I'd like to give you £1 million, to go and build one of these in Musselburgh. And I just thought to myself, that's the daftest idea ever. I don't know Musselburgh. I needed your cash last year, and now you want to. So that was my first lesson in maybe being a bit more patient about how to develop these things.
Was the property already built, or was it an empty patch?
It's a good question. There's a long and nuanced answer. In short, we actually bought it when it was a patch of land, but the building plans were already done. So we tweaked a couple of, we asked Jim whether we could tweak a couple of things to make it more office looking, but they have essentially delivered it, and we bought it at a strike price when it was built. Yeah.
And can I ask, from that moment that you walked into Dublin Street office and met Jim to the point at which the deal was done, how long did that take? About
a year and a half, I would say.
Was it? All right, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Wow. This episode of Edinburgh Business Stories is brought to you by Rathbones. Rathbones is one of the UK's leading wealth managers with an office right here in the city of Edinburgh. They have a long history of helping people plan and invest for the future they want, and believe there's one word you should live by: well. Well learned, well invested, well timed. Maybe you're scaling a business or climbing the career ladder, and you're earning bonuses, dividends, and a significant salary. Success is rewarding, but it often leaves you time poor. Rathbones understand the demands of business ownership and professional careers, because when you plan well, you can grow well, live well, and sleep well. Wherever you are on your wealth journey, Rathbones can help you go further, and they do it all well. To learn more, visit rathbones.link/EBS. Rathbones. Invest well, live well. When you invest, your capital is at risk. And so how has that community continued to grow then? And, what was opening day like? What was the buzz? What was the community vibe?
Well, it was another good lesson for me because, of course, we had our opening party and everyone's patting you on the back. And actually you realize the next day, like, the internet's going to go down and the toilets are going to, and now you're in the real world, and that's where the real work starts. But right from the start, we've really embraced our community and they've embraced us. I would say that, it was a wee bit scary because I had to get open, build warrant, couldn't get the build warrant for it. And it was all to do with phone lines, internet lines not being in, BT not signing off, yada, yada. But you just eventually have to open. And I'd been touting this as the best internet in town, like Central London internet, Central Edinburgh in North Berwick. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? Come on. And when we opened for 3 weeks, I was borrowing internet off Howard Selby, the garage next door. And I was just hoping people weren't going to have to share internet too much, and there wasn't going to be architects coming in day one and I'll have to download CAD files. Otherwise I would have been found out. You just got to open it. So it was all a bit scary at the start, but we were fine. And then I remember I had my first not sleepless night about 9 months after, and since 9 months after, I've never once had a sleepless night on this business because the community's just embraced it, even through COVID. We've always stayed at 95% plus occupancy.
Right.
Just all you do when you own the buildings, you dial down all your rent, you help your tenants, and then you don't make any money, and they're not making any money either, and then you dial it back up in the good times.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
That's great. And you talked earlier about the difference with co-working and cellular. What's your angle on that?
Yeah, well, cellular, from a commercial perspective, cellular offices is what makes you money. And, from a price per square foot, for instance, out there, it's essentially a shed that we're in that could be valued at £4 or £5 a square foot. But when you're trying to sell cellular office space at what breaks down to about £30 a square foot, which is like the centre of Edinburgh, you can't do that without really saying you can also use the communal space. There's also next door, there's free coffee, there's free internet, we'll put on, the odd event for you. I think the days of, I know all the big business spaces do it, the beers and all that kind of stuff. Our community is people that actually want to work. Like, honestly, they don't want us to have forced fun every Friday night. They want to, but we'll still do stuff, so we'll still do Christmas events, summer events and so on, but they'll work we've got a combination of fixed desks, sort of like walk-in desks and cellular space. Cellular space is the most commercial for us, but we need the co-working space in order to drive that. And downstairs we have like dance schools, personal trainers, like hairdressers, music schools, things like that we put on slightly longer term leases.
So you've built this, you're open, the Lost Shore stuff is still bubbling along. How do you get to the point where then, are you sat on the front desk? Where do you say, well, hang on, I need help with this?
I was the night before I was putting up the IKEA furniture, like literally the night before, I had to go and collect, it was just the whole thing was, but I enjoy it. I enjoy that hustle, if you know what I mean, but it was crazy. But I got my cousin, Sophie, she wasn't in employment at that time. I said, Sophie, I've got systems in here. She's really good on systems, IT, etc. I just need someone to come and help me. And for the first 6 months, I just sat on the desk, basically myself with Sophie more than me. And I thought, obviously, that's not the end game, but I need to figure out myself how to run this. And then after that 9-month period, Sophie then felt she wanted to go and work elsewhere in a museum. She always wanted to work in a museum. So I said, this is the goal. If you can end up working in a museum, if I can give you that foot up by working here, then that's a win. Yeah. She helped me bring on some of the amazing people who now run it. We've had brilliant people, Kat, Corin, Fiona now, who runs it. Just brilliant. They treat it like their home. And that's kind of how we did it.
Yeah. So you started bringing people in. And so at what point then were you thinking, okay, this model is a cool one and it works. What's next? Yeah,
this was a tricky bit for me because Waveguard was really starting to hit its stride now. I had left my property job now, so I only had 2 jobs, not 3 at this point, which is good. But I could see so much potential in the hybrid working marketplace, but I just knew I didn't have the time to do it. But this is really what's taken us strength to strength. I had a pal called Nick Watson, who now runs the business. And he kept chirping me. He was like, oh, Andy, I really think it's cool what you're doing. And I really like this hybrid working space. But he worked a really good job at Retty. He's like lifer, very well respected, good salary. It's like, can I come and help you? Can I come and help you? I was like, Nick, mate, it sounds like it might look fun what I'm doing. Surf parks and business centres. I was like, but this is, you have to enjoy the trenches, right? Like, you know what I mean? You've had it pretty cushy. Like, you have to enjoy the trenches. He was like, no. He's like, Andy, I only want 3 things now. I've decided. I want some form of ownership in something. So it's like, feels like my own thing. I'd like it to be lucrative and I want to have fun. And I was like, well, I can give you 1 and 3. And maybe if you get 1 and 3 right, I'm pretty sure you can get 2 as well. And he took a big salary hit. And to be fair to him, he's never once moaned about it. He's got straight into those trenches. It's right through COVID. Yeah. It's him that helped develop It's him that helped develop Falkirk Buy and Selling. That was a lot of work. And it's him that's got the relationships in with Forth Ports. He's got the trust of them to the point where Forth Ports let him manage the whole thing out there on a monthly retainer. He got that through planning in Leith himself, and he just runs it. And he also helps me with some of my rollout stuff, the global rollout stuff at Lost Shore. So, yeah, if it wasn't for Nick, I would have just sat in North Berwick and been happy with that. But we'd always had itchy feet because there's so much potential in this market.
And so you've mentioned Forth Ports. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that specifically then? Because that's like a big thing, right? Coming to Edinburgh. Yeah.
I just think that there's obviously already some really good office spaces in Edinburgh, but hybrid working is something that I think the market is still slightly confused about. I think it's its own asset class. There's a space for Class A offices, grade A offices in the centre of town, and it's really important because I especially think for junior staff, you learn so much through osmosis that you don't want to have all your staff working from home. I mean, this argument's been done to death, and I think we've seen a lot of that. But then people do like to work from home. They like that flexibility, and employees can be a bit more choosy and picky now, if they're not being allowed to work from home. But people, 9 out of 10, probably more than that, people get sick of working from home. It's not, your home should be your home. So then there is this middle ground in hybrid office spaces that we really want to infiltrate, but it's super important to us that doesn't just work off supply and demand change. We found in Falkirk, for instance, we ran a high occupancy rates over there, but the reality is it wasn't like we hadn't built it. We weren't putting like a huge effort into like building a community there. So if someone had came and built something better next door, they would have pinched all our tenants. Where if someone came and built something even better next door in North Berwick, we still believe, naive or not, that we've got such a loyal community base that we would retain a lot of our tenants. So in Leith, what we're trying to do is do a similar concept, but within the city. And obviously, we're going to push towards the creative sectors. It's right beside the film studio down there. And we just think it's going to be an amazing place for people that sit within Leith. And they don't have to be creatives, but sit within Leith to come down, have loads of creative businesses grouped together beside the film studio in a beautiful setting. And, they can cycle there and head up into town if they need to. And I just think that's going to be a great working environment to bring to the city.
And it sounds like it's going to be quite a unique design as well for the space.
Yeah, we're using containers. Yeah, which is cool.
Why containers?
Well, I think I've always wanted to try them. I was looking at them for Lost Shore, and I think Nick's, he's done so much research on everything that they're modular, for one, in that you can get a lot of your first and second fix done in the factory. So when you're actually comparing container prices and modular building prices with standard building, you're not necessarily always seeing that they're cheaper on paper. Where you save your money, to my mind, is that during a construction process, time is money. Prelims are one of the worst costs you can have when you're building something. So if something goes overrun, you could be tens of £1,000s a week just in prelims costs, because the builders are all there. You're still paying your designers on retention. It's crazy amounts of money. Whereas what the modular does is, you've got your civils builders that'll build the infrastructure underneath, and then the containers just come on. So they're in and they're out, and then you just have to furnish them. But they can all be prefabbed in the factory. So there's recycling stories, there's commercial reasoning in terms of the contractually, and there's the aesthetic as well. I just think it looks cool, and I think that's what the creative industries are gonna like.
So once the kind of the groundwork's done, presumably that building's going to go up relatively fast then.
Yeah, it should go up. Touch wood, if managed correctly. Nick, if you're listening. It should do in theory. In theory, these things always have their quirks, but yeah.
And how, you also mentioned you've got the one next to Lost Shore as well. Tell us the story of that. How does that tie in with the community thing? And
well, there's a need for a workspace in Ratho, just full stop. I think a bit like in North Berwick. But more than that, we're really, like I was saying before, they have to be discretionary, these things. Otherwise, people rent them for a while and then they'll leave. But if we can give discounts on climbing, discounts on surfing, discounts on having massages, spas, discounts on really nice food, it's a really cool environment to come and base your business from, in our opinion. And we're starting to see that. In fact, we're starting to see people commute out from Edinburgh to use our flexible workspace out there. So it's in the climbing centre. It's the top floor there of the EICA. We only opened a few months ago, so it's still going through its stabilisation years at the moment. But we're very proud of that space, and we think it's only also going to go from strength to strength, hopefully.
And you're starting to see that vision, right? The one you had back sitting in the garden thinking, surf place next to workspace. Wow, this could be, this is the beginning.
I think so, because I think that the way the world is going, I mean, even if you look at, this is an extreme example, but if you look at the Saudis and they're trying to build 15-mile cities and what they're really trying to do and what a lot of places are trying to do is they're trying to create areas where you basically never have to leave them if you don't need to. And they've got all your amenities nearby. And the only thing that the surf park is missing, because it's got an amazing accommodation, it's an amazing hangout already, amazing surfing activity, sauna, spa. The only thing that's missing from being the sort of holistic lifestyle environment, and we already get people using their laptops, I think you guys have been out there too, is workspaces. So if we can add that workspace component into a place where already you could dwell time all day, we're hopefully creating a whole environment where people can just hang out themselves with their families all day. And I think that's the last piece in the puzzle.
Andy, can I ask a question? This is a permission to boast kind of set up here, right? What's your skill, you think? Because I'm kind of listening to how the story of Lighthouse and also kind of Lost Shore as well, and I'm thinking I'm noticing a few things. But what do you think your kind of skill is in this whole thing?
I enjoy, I'm very curious, I think, about people and other people's skills. I enjoy getting people around me that can do, and I enjoy being part of a team that achieves things, especially when it's things that other people don't think you can do. I find that fun. But I suppose I'm a bit of a dreamer. I'm always thinking of what the utopia would look like and trying to push towards that. And I think that's always been built within me. And the difference was when I actually started taking the jump out of the workplace. I think it helped that I was made redundant a couple of times. That helped because it kind of maybe the stable life isn't so stable after all. So if I'm going to live or die by the sword, then I'd rather die by my own sword, to be honest. So I think when I then had that confidence to do that, I then learned by speaking to people and being so curious, and so many people want to help me. I'm genuinely interested in that. Like I'm listening to what the architects are telling me because I'm interested in what their skill is. And when you've got that curiosity, you pick up enough knowledge to start to realize, wait a minute, nothing's actually a rocket science unless you're a rocket scientist, I suppose. So you can actually make things happen, and even if you were a B-set maths guy.
Well, that's certainly what I noticed as well. It's just that you're a huge collaborator, and just bringing people in on the story, and willingly kind of people want to come and be part of it. It's really I think it stands out massively. I think
that it was I made my first goal, which was to earn 30 grand by 30 when I was 29 or 28, and I remember earning, because all my mates were doing better than I was and everything else like that. I just really set this goal and I really went for it internally, and I remember getting my salary increased to 31k when I was 29, and I was like so happy. Like I couldn't have been happier. And I was like, I felt I didn't need a car, and I was like, I fully achieved something that I've set out to do. So I just started making like 2 5-year goals for myself. And a lot of them weren't about money. That was the only one that's ever had anything to do with money.
Right.
The rest were just like, I want to live in a place where I want to live. So it's by the sea. So if I'm ever out of work, I can go surfing all the time. Like, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So I then just put heaven and earth to move to North Berwick, and I'm like, right, fine, if it all goes wrong here, got the beach over here, got the, you know what I mean, just these type of thing, goals. So I think when you feel very strongly about that, and you're not just chasing greed, you're not just chasing the bank out, and then what I found when you do that, actually you can become wealthy that way. But you don't do it deliberately.
I love it. Love it. Hey, listen, I meant to ask you earlier, Lighthouse, was that, how did you come up with that name? It might sound a stupid question that you're in North Berwick, but why call it Lighthouse?
Honestly, I just asked a guy. I thought, like, I remember I was walking down the street near here, actually, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get the same old, because we'd start to go through this at Lost Shore, even in those early days. Like, everyone talked about naming, and you need agencies, and everyone needs to think of a name. I was like, hey, what would you call it? And he was like, Lighthouse. I was like, done. And you just reverse engineer the story. Like, oh, it's by the sea, it's North Berwick. And the phone could turn up, you're like, it doesn't look like it, looks like an old shed. I'm like, oh no, but it's by the sea. When it lights up at night, I don't know, just the lighthouse. Hey, a brand is what you make it.
Love it. It was just a random guy, was it?
Yeah, it was a guy I was asking about interior design. I thought he seems quite cool. What would you call it? I said, all right, cheers, pal.
Through this journey of building businesses over the last decade and further, what has the emotional journey been on with family and friends?
That's been the most challenging bit by quite some distance, because I'm in the businesses that I've set up have been property developments, and they're by nature incredibly slow. They're de-risked when you open them, but they're very slow and hard to describe. So I would say very hard in the, when you've got all your peers. I don't hold any grudges for this, because I would think the same. But when you've got your whole peer group in your profession thinking you're a bit wacky, you've got your families probably thinking, oh, Christ, hope this works for him, because he seems very enthusiastic, but Jesus, this is all a bit mad. And I can feel all that happening. It can be a very long and tortuous process. And then obviously when you have your own businesses, as you lads will know, like, it's 24/7. So a lot of the stuff I created so much busyness for myself that I was having to stop hanging out with my friends. Which is what I'm doing a lot more of now, because that's what I missed. It's just hanging out with my old buddies or whatever. That's actually what you miss more than traveling around the world trying to do deals. They're exciting on paper, but nothing's more exciting than getting your buddies around to watch Scotland play football. So there's no better feeling, or hang out with your family at the weekend. So I would say that I'm really happy that I've come slightly over the other side of that now, because for probably the best part of a decade, I felt like I was almost pushing people away from me. And it was weird, because the whole reason I'm doing this is to try to create a better environment for myself and my communities around me. Yeah, I was like pushing myself away from all that. So thankfully that part of the journey's hopefully over now.
And out of interest, we've obviously got two businesses, Lost Shore, and we've got Lighthouse as well. And kind of, how much has one helped the other, do you think, in terms of the development of both?
Like just I think the confidence I got from the first 2-3 years of Lost Shore, learning again that things weren't just a rocket science. Like when I was a surveyor, I was either an office surveyor, then I was an insolvency surveyor. So if I was an insolvency surveyor and I had a planning issue, I went to a table over there because that was the planning guys. If I had an investment issue, I'd go to the investment guys over there because they were investment guys. And I couldn't ever learn about, and they would make it out like it was all rocket science. And then when you do your own businesses, you realize they're just kind of playing at it as well. Like you get good guys that are good at their jobs. There's not taking it away, but it's like it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Like, and so once I got that confidence, I needed the confidence of having a £2 million business centre fundraise in my back pocket for the Lighthouse to really believe in myself that I could raise 60 for Lost Shore. Without that, I don't know where I would have found that legitimate confidence from. So I think that's probably, hopefully they'll help each other in the future because they're closer together. But in terms of the mentality, I needed the Lighthouse confidence and learnings to really be confident about Lost Shore.
And what was the main learning that you took from the Lighthouse that then helped you for Lost Shore?
Just things take time and never get too, just try and win each day. And if you lose a day, just try and win the next one, because it's so, the journeys are so long, and you know, after doing it for a few years, you know things aren't going to go to plan. So make your bullet point plans like super simple, like, because if they're all, because nothing's going to end out exactly what's going to be like. So like, for instance, in Leith, make sure we build it. There's a plan. because and then you have plans within that plans. You want to build it efficiently, you want to do all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But you have to come back to, but are we still going to be building it here? And is it going to be make sure you build it, and then you've got a business plan that can potentially make money.
Yeah.
And all right, okay, well actually, even though it feels like it's going like that, we can still build it and still make money.
Yeah.
So just keep going.
Yeah. And in terms of timings then, I appreciate that it kind of might not be exact, but what's your kind of ideal date for opening this place down in Porch?
It just depends. Like, we're going to go for a tender in the next 6 months. Next obviously busy doing all that, and then hopefully we'll get spades in the ground next year at some stage, and then it's maybe a year so it's build, maybe a year and a half by the time you've discovered all the unknown unknowns and pre-commencement planning conditions and everything like that. So yeah, maybe 2.5 years, maybe 3 years away. Hopefully sooner, but yeah, I think
just build it.
Just build it.
Just get it done.
Just be like Lego with these containers, eh?
Get it built now. That's what I love about property. Once it's built, it's built. Like, it is built.
Yeah.
It's done.
You had a bit of a full circle moment with the WeWork story just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just tell us about that.
Oh, well, it's just, we went out to the Surf Park Summit, which is, it was great with Lost Shore because there's 26 of these surf parks open around the world, and we were actually voted number one in the world from a customer experience, which I think is so much to do with the way the community's rallied round here, and a lot of our great staff and everything like that. And we're also voted the most advanced and innovative. And we heard there was a secret guest speaker. I was like, oh, okay, sounds very fancy. And then in walks Adam Newman of WeWork with his 3 or 4 henchmen beside him walking through, and I just marched up to him. I had my Doddy Wear tartan on with my top. Adam, you don't know me, Andy. And I started talking. I just said very briefly something, and he said, let's walk while we talk. I thought I was on the West Wing. So I turned around and walked with him, and he was like, I want to get partnerships around the world, and I really like this. He's like, you got to speak to this guy. So I was like, okay, fine. And then we end up going for dinner with that guy that night. But I did say to Adam, one of the things I said when we were walking as we were talking, I said to him, I've actually got a bit of a mad story about how your idea in New York has affected what I've done in Edinburgh. I didn't go on to tell him that I obviously learned from a lot of his mistakes, but he certainly did a lot of things right. So hopefully at the right stage over the next few weeks, I'll get a chance to sit down and tell him that story.
Nice.
Amazing. We ask all our guests, as you know, what is your guiding principle in business?
Well, since I've been on once before, I thought it'd be a bit wrong of me to change it. So I thought it's don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. And that's really just goes for all the people that have helped me along the journey, and even myself, is that every person, I believe, has talent in them, and every person has a passion for something certain, and it's not always obvious. It might even not be the thing that they're doing at that time, but if you can mine that gold within them, then you sort of set them free, and then they help you, and you become greater than some of their parts. So yeah, don't judge people like that until you've found out really what their talent is and set them free. And
I know that's meant to be the last question. Do you mind? I'm just curious. Do you have any examples of where you've seen, maybe kind of...
Yeah, well, Mold Mucker Bainey, I mentioned him actually on the last podcast, but probably my closest business ally over the past 10 years has been Chris Bain. I used to play rugby with him, and he was a videographer by trade. Yeah. And when he started helping me, people used to say, how's Bainey helping you on this big project? I was like, he's doing everything. He's the best people's person I know. Like, you sit him in front of the builders and there's a tense conversation. He's very common sense and things are getting heated. He takes the sting out of it, takes them all for a beer, problem solved. Then he goes, then there's a problem with the investment. He'll go and meet the top banker out there. Why are you taking Bainey to meet the guy from the investment committee at BAE Pension Fund? I'm like, I can't explain why. Can't explain why. Come back, but he supports me. I might even get all intense on, you know what I mean? I've got to manage my own weaknesses sometimes. I get frustrated. It takes the edge off it. Meeting goes well. Every single scenario he's in.
What would you do to take the edge off something? You know,
apart from going for pints.
Yeah.
It's just a manner. He's a very likable guy. I think he's just got a good manner with people. He listens and then he actually acts on stuff, and he's always there to calibrate especially when things are problematic. And that's a guy who, like, what skill have I even described? But it's been worth millions of pounds for us, and it continues to this day on Lost Shore. And I always find it funny when everyone else figures it out. No one figures it out until the penny drops. What does he actually do? Yeah. And then he helps them with something, and they're like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, I like this guy."
You do realise that once he hears this, he's asking for a pay rise.
Oh, well, he's not getting one.
Millions. You can take him for a pint. You'll be fine with that.
He's worth his weight in gold. Is Bainey. It's his weight that's the problem.
Brilliant. Andy, thank you so much for coming on again, sharing your story, and we're excited to see all your plans in the future.
Right, okay. Cheers, fellas. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Edinburgh Business Stories. If you found it useful or inspiring, please do subscribe and follow along for more conversations just like this. And why not share it with your friends too, so that more people can hear these inspiring stories. We'd also love it if you could rate and review this podcast wherever you're listening. This helps more people to find us and ensures that we can keep bringing you these stories for years to come. And if there's someone you think that we should speak to, let us know. We're always looking for great stories to share. You can email us at edinburgh@businessstories.co.uk. And as always, a big thank you to Rathbones for partnering with us on this episode. Rathbones. Invest well, live well.